Well, unfortunately, it seems the gremlins are still attacking Taylor. So you're back with me. And I'm just slowly moving my way down to Twin Dams, as I said I would be doing. Just checking along Weaver's Nest for any signs of any of our leopards. But alas, nothing that I can see yet. Just a few vervet monkey tracks. Ah, Craig spotted a bird. I wonder if it's going to stay there. It's a shrike, a bush shrike. Now, oh no, don't fly away. Where did you go? I saw it fly. I'm just trying to see if I can see it again. No, it's just flown away. Unfortunately, there was a bush shrike. It looked like a grey-headed bush shrike, just judging by the size, going sort of into the bush area. And I've actually seen that bush shrike here before. I once got it on camera, so it's a bird that seems to hang around quite a bit. I wonder if it's not got a roosting point somewhere in this area. Let's check now the fire break. No tracks anywhere there. I know there was a leopard that was... There was two. Well, Shadow was south of us, and apparently there was another leopard that was also coming this way, calling last night. So maybe we'll get lucky and find some tracks somewhere here. If it was calling from Little Gowrie area and around the lodge area there, then it's directly south on the Mulawati, and so it should come out Baboon Pan area or Twin Dams. So hopefully we'll find some tracks for this said individual. Still no tracks for any elephants either. Will, I'm still looking, and I'm hoping that I will find them for you, but no sign of them at all. Now it sounds like Taylor is still manfully braving the gremlins and fighting them, and seems as though she's starting to win a little bit, and she's got a bird. So before it flies away and before she loses signal, let's go across to her.
We're having so much luck this morning, and particularly with the birds, because we have these amazing sightings and then they keep flying away. So not even the birds are on our side today, which is very frustrating. And there goes the grey go away bird. So maybe it's gonna land on top of that marula where there's two of them now. Right up top over there. You can just hear them calling a bit. And this is a display I haven't seen just yet. I actually don't know too much about the breeding behaviors of go-away birds, so I'm going to open my app and see if it says anything about them. It'll be quite interesting. I don't know if how the male courts the female, if he brings her presents, or if he does a dance, or if he sings to her. Let's go to Tarocco's, maybe it will be there. It's really difficult to try and find these things. There we go. Let's see what it says. Now, as we go along, we're going to try and focus quite a bit over the next couple of weeks. Oh, there's a third contender coming to the party about the breeding habits of the various bird species. Oh, that was quite sweet. Let's go. I'm just trying to get now down to breeding. Okay, so they are monogamous like most of the birds out here, but they don't nest like, for instance... Oh, I thought you were going to say you cut away from me, but thank you very much, Chantal, for updating me about what I was talking about. I was so confused there for a moment, sorry. So this is quite interesting. Look at that bird over there. I don't know what's quite going on at the moment. So what I was going to say, so they're monogamous like most of the birds out here that we have. However, they typically nest on their own, which is quite interesting. I think I have seen them though being quite cooperative now and then, now that I'm just thinking about some of the sightings that I have. Perhaps there's, like I said, we never really know with all these birds, and nature does its own thing, so it wouldn't surprise me if they are cooperative every now and then, but I think typically they'll nest by themselves. And so it does say that the males do spend quite a bit of time courting the females. Look at that interesting wing movement. Look at that. See, tapping it. Being quite submissive. See how that lowered down position? I wonder if that wasn't just a coincidence that it was doing that with its wing, but the other one did it too. Look at that. Maybe it's regurgitating a seed or something. So perhaps that is the male, the one that's got his crest erected like that, and these are females. Maybe he's trying to choose a mate. This is very interesting at the moment. Well, the other one doesn't seem to be too worried. It actually flew away now, so perhaps it went, okay, I didn't win this battle. Very, very interesting though. I'm going to have to do so much research now on the different birds and their courtship process. Here you go. They're definitely getting food. You see they're regurgitating something. Let me just quickly check when they nest. Maybe it's a youngster. What time of the year? Laying dates. Let's go to South Africa though. July, August, so anywhere from July right through, my goodness, to May. But typically the peak seems on the test that, or the nest that they found, seem to be around October. So I don't think that this is a youngster. I think that it is a male trying to court a female. But that is quite nice. So he's actually not presenting her with a gift that he's freshly gone and picked. He's just giving her something that he's already eaten. I suppose that's better than nothing, don't you think? I would love to find the nest of a go-away bird. I think that that could be quite an amazing thing to see. Having a little preen now, scratching itself, just jumping around on that marula tree that no longer has leaves. Probably easy to jump around on that when you haven't got any leaves obstructing your sort of acrobatic skills. I'm surprised we have not seen mongoose, because there's obviously lots of birds around here. They're all trying to warm themselves up in the tops of the trees. But I've been scanning. You know what? I see there's a slender mongoose. You see that broken down tree right over there? If you zoom straight in there very quickly, go down to the bottom right of the part of the tree. There was a slender mongoose there. I just want to see where it's gone. Maybe it's going to poke its head up. I just saw it run to the base of that tree now. I thought it was a dwarf mongoose, but it had a very long tail, and it also curled it up a little bit.
That one at the back, or this one?
No, the one that you were on.
This one, yeah.
No, the first one you were on? Yeah. Where did it go? It might have run off already. I'll keep an eye on there. That would have been really nice, because we're so far away, so I don't even think it realizes that we're sitting over here, because we've been still for quite some time. Well, let's see if we can find anyone else. Where's the bird parties when you need them? I'm too afraid to move now, because I'm so scared the gremlins are going to attack us. Let me look on my right side, if there's anything we can have a look at. You can hear the tractors though. No, the gremlins seem to be attacking Tristan as well. My goodness. Gremlins, you really have not been kind to us over the last few days. What have we got there, Seb? I'm also trying to spot things with my eyes.
A hornbill landing there.
A hornbill?
Yeah.
Nancy, you wondering if the go-away birds chase away gremlins? No, apparently not. You'd think that they'd give us a helping hand, seeing as though we speak of those birds so highly. If only it would regurgitate a seed and spit it back at the gremlins. But there's some hornbills. We've got red-billed hornbills. Yes, come and land here, you good bird. Wonderful. Now this is what we were actually watching earlier, was one of the red-billed hornbills. Whether it's the same individual, I'm not so sure, but I hope it's going to do what it was doing before, because it was down on the ground and it was pecking away at this tree that you can see. The termites have started actually hollowing it out. So I reckon you could go over there. If you sneeze too hard next to that tree, it would completely crumble. And that's good news for something like a hornbill. Obviously, a lot of the insects are not necessarily on the surface. Yes, it's going to do it again. Please do it again. There it is. They have to start pecking away at the bark and turning over bits and pieces to try and find insects. Now, it was using that very long beak, and I suppose it's very handy to have a beak of that size. And you can actually use it sort of to probe as well. This is where the termites are. It's obviously getting some. I don't think it's necessarily the large fungus growing termites. It might be a smaller species that it's feeding on at the moment. Well, I think that's a good idea. If it turns all those bits of bark over, if it pokes its beak into some of those crevices and pulls away at the bark as well, it might get lucky and get some tasty little termites. And they're so full of protein and fat. They're so good for you. Even for us, we should of course be eating them too. But I suppose we've got lots of other things to eat. Now, Nikki, you're wondering what is my favorite bird beak? My favorite bird beak. That's a good one. I think I quite enjoy the beaks of the hornbills. Look at it. Look at it. It almost looks like it was stalking something there. slowly going in, about to spear into the ground, and it's like a heron would, I suppose, when it's trying to catch fish. But it's not doing that, of course. It's now given up on that little spot. Running around. Where are you going next? I love the way they run and they point their tails towards the air, and I suppose they have to tip their tails up to the sky so that it doesn't get caught on things. Now you might hear some strange noises. It's our dear friend Rexon going past on the tractor. He's off to do some maintenance again. He's working very, very hard. Lately, well, not lately, he always works hard. Everybody always works hard, our chap. It just shows you as a guide, you're not just restricted to doing guiding things. You sort of have to be a jack of all trades, a mechanic, a plumber, an electrician, a tractor driver. You need to know all these things, of course. So there it goes down in the long grass. It must have seen something all the way down there, or perhaps it was a gathering of some other birds. Alright, what else? Who else has decided to come and join the party? No squirrels sunning themselves today. We're looking frantically. Where are the animals? Where are the insects? Where are the everything? It would be nice if we had a flock of southern ground hornbill just fly down and land in front of us. That, of course, would be ideal. I don't know if you can see it, Seb. I can see that hornbill again. So I think it's going to go behind the tree now, this little apple leaf. It's just behind it, but something, it keeps getting attention. If we see if we can see it. No, it's just behind that, a bit far away. Okay. No, it's not there yet. Anyways, we're going to send you back across to Tristan now. It seems as though the gremlins have left him, and hopefully we'll find something else to look at while you spend some time with him.
Well, I'm not sure what Taylor said because it all just broke up completely, and I know that she was with a hornbill for a while, and so I'll try and find something, Taylor. I know that you asked that I should try and find, or hopefully I'll find, but we're going to try and find anything. I'm still looking for elephants, looking for any signs of our spotted cats, enjoying some of the birds that are out this morning. So even though it's been a little quiet on the animal side, birds have been pretty good this morning. We've had some cool sightings of the raptors. We had a juvenile Battalier eagle just now. Unfortunately, it was in the Mulawati, so we didn't have any signal for it. But I'm just now checking Vulture's Nest quickly. I want to try and check up towards Buffelshoek Dam for any signs of elephants, and then from there head towards the Hyena Den, and hopefully we'll get lucky with some of the spotty hyenas at their den sites. It will be interesting to know what's going on there and see who's around and what's happening, and if there is anybody around at this stage of the game. But like I say, it's still quiet on a track's point of view. I don't think I've actually seen a leopard track yesterday afternoon or this morning that has been around, which is quite strange. We had a time when there were leopard tracks everywhere on Djuma, which was fantastic because it kind of gives you that hope that you are going to find something. But this morning it's been a little quiet from that point of view. We've got no leopard tracks to work with. There was the tracks of the Nkumas, but like I say, they went all the way up into Manialeti, so they are probably quite far from where we are at the moment. And the buffalo, well, they hopefully will be back this afternoon. I'm hoping that they went towards Red Dam to drink this morning, and then they're going to turn and start coming back towards Sydney's for the afternoon. So hopefully we'll find those buffalo this afternoon. It'll be nice to see some buffalo again. It's been a while since I've actually seen any buff. Just got to negotiate this big hole. There we go. I often forget about that hole in the road, and it ends up in a situation where the poor cameraman goes flying as I go around the corner. That actually reminds me of my story that I was telling yesterday. So for some of you that were watching yesterday, and for those of you that weren't, I was talking about when I was at Chitwa, there was a certain part of Chitwa that gave me the heebie-jeebies, or this funny feeling. And the reason why was in the 2012 flood that we had in this area, there was a section of that road that just completely collapsed, and it made a massive sinkhole. Now the sinkhole would have been enough to easily fit, probably I would say, this car, so Wendy and probably Rusty on top of it inside. So it was a really deep hole, and the concerning part about it is that it was on the road itself. Now that road has since been fixed, but the reason I get the heebie-jeebies there is because around there surely it is still unstable, and when you drive over there I have always this feeling like the ground is just going to give way and this whole car is just going to disappear inside this massive sinkhole. So that's why I get the heebie-jeebies in that area. It just gives me a funny feeling when I drive there. I always feel like I need to be careful and kind of zip past and hope that I don't fall into a massive ditch, and which would be really quite unfortunate and probably the end of both myself and Craig if we did fall into that ditch. So that's the story, and I know yesterday I forgot to tell it because I got sidetracked with that dead steenbok, but that was what I was talking about. Now I believe Taylor has, with her gremlin problem, still pipped me to the post and managed to find a carnivore before I have.
Well, I wouldn't jinx us just yet. We're kind of restricted to quarantine, unfortunately, this morning. But we have found a dwarf mongoose. They now have moved to the middle road of quarantine. So they've left their other spots. And it looks like they're just actually waking up. I don't think that they've come out of their little termite mound house. I don't think they've been out here for very long at all, because they're still hanging around right at the entrance. And it was just because it was, of course, quite chilly today. So they thought that they would use this time, they would sleep in. And now, obviously, they're starting to get a bit hungry. So they're warming themselves up, saying good morning to each other. Giving themselves a nice little groom, but also making sure that they keep an eye out. Because they don't want to get eaten. Of course, there's lots and lots of raptors out and about here that they need to be careful of. Especially some of the smaller raptors that would find these little creatures to be quite delicious. Now you can see some of them are now starting to move off and go about searching for food. And now, wouldn't it be nice if we could watch one of them dig out a scorpion or a centipede, something like that? We actually saw a massive centipede in camp yesterday. That would have been the most delicious meal for a dwarf mongoose. What you doing? Just looking at us. Look at that head. Doesn't stop twitching, does it? Ears never stop working. And I reckon their eyesight is quite good as well. I think they're quite lucky. They've got fairly good senses. Oh, Laura Moore, you said that they're so cute. They are indeed. There's so many of them. There's a whole lot. Those ones right at the... They keep coming back to that sort of group over there, which is quite nice. Those two are huddled up. You're not going to go running just yet. You're quite happy. There we go. The one's saying, right, I'm going off now. But we're not seeing too many little mongoose now either. They've all grown up quite quickly. Remember at one point they were so tiny. So tiny. Are you looking for mongoose? They're all over there.
There's lots behind us.
Oh, I'm scared to move. I think the question from Steel Max was, are mongoose scared of snakes? Was that correct, Chantal? Oh, why don't they fear snakes? Sorry, I missed that. Well, it's because they eat them, I suppose. They're not particularly, but they've got to be wary of them, because snakes definitely feed on mongoose more than we think, more than we actually see, especially pythons. I don't know if dwarf mongoose would be able to take on a 4-meter python. I think they might sort of cause quite a stir. They probably make quite a bit of noise, stand up on their back legs and look at the snake, but they certainly wouldn't go after it. These guys, because they are so little, they are restricted to eating the smaller snakes. Like a brown house snake would be a tasty meal. Even a juvenile, any of the juvenile snakes, from a boomslang to a puff adder, they'd quite happily go for something of that size. But they're clever. They're not going to take on a battle that they won't win, because remember, they'll end up coming off second best. They've got very sharp claws though, and very sharp teeth, so I suppose they could do quite a bit of damage if all of them teamed up and ganged up on, of course, the snake. Now I've spotted some other birds. I think there's a Bennett's woodpecker. If you follow this track that goes towards the Bushbrass site, yep, there's a couple of things. No, please say it didn't just fly away. I think it's just flown away. Man, there was a little bird party there, but now they've completely disappeared, and so are our mongoose. Our mongoose now are also running away. There's a couple, but they've all gone behind us. But we can look at those ones over there. There's lots of things here. It's just some of them are just so far out of view. No, now they're running back again. No, mongoose, behave. Now, dear watcher, you're wondering if the mongoose will change dens. They do indeed. They'll have a couple that they'll use. Remember, they can forage quite far away from the area that they're sleeping in. So they will run down other termite mounds. They will run underneath fallen trees or long grass to try and hide away if they feel as though they're going to be attacked or if there's a threat in the area. But they typically sleep in one spot for a couple of days, and you can normally pick out which one that is by the amount of dung that's on the eastern entrance of that mound, because remember, that's where the sun rises. It's the same all over the world. So they want to warm themselves up, so they will sit there, and well, morning constitution happens in the morning. So that's what typically will happen, but there's lots and lots of mounds and things around here that they will utilize too. Tractors going past again. Now, William, aged 8, who's all the way from Oregon, you're wondering if dwarf mongoose have a pouch on their belly like kangaroos do. I don't think so. I think that's restricted to marsupials. So I think koalas have it, possums, kangaroos and things like that, but unfortunately mongoose don't have a pouch at all. They've got mammary glands though, so they've got teats that the little ones will suckle from, but they don't store them in a little pouch at all. It's hard to almost tell which ones are the young ones now. But you see their attention. I don't know where to look now. They look at us and then they look at Rexon, who's driving past on the tractor again. We're not making all that noise, I promise you, and we're not interested in eating at you, so you don't have to worry about us. You can hear the rumbling of the tractor. It's always busy. I suppose that's the sound that is sort of associated with the bush as well. Ganda ganda is the Shangani word for a tractor. And it sounds exactly like that too. Well, that one sounds like it's in great working condition. Or Rex is driving it in quite a high gear, because normally they're so loud. It's quite a disturbing noise too. And maybe these are young ones that we've got here hanging around the entrance of this mound. Maybe they're a little bit shy and nervous to move away and move too far away. So they're hanging about, and they might still be suckling as well, so they don't need to constantly keep feeding. They just supplement their diet here and there with the odd insect. Now, kitty kitty bang bang, you're wondering if these are the mongoose that lick each other to settle disputes. I'm not actually sure, but I would imagine so. They're very social creatures. They're very intelligent too. And we see it with a lot of different animals, is the best way to strengthen a bond for the ones that are sociable is to well groom each other. So I can imagine after, say, a dispute about something, though I don't think animals hold grudges like we do as humans, grooming one another is probably a sign of respect as well. Look at that, get under my arm, I can't reach under my armpit. And then of course they get a meal out of it too. Remember, it's the same thing with monkeys as well, is that even though they're grooming each other, they will eat the ticks and the mites and fleas and whatever that they pull off. They go, oh great, this is a fantastic little snack. So I would say yes, I suppose they do groom each other to settle arguments. I suppose it's very important to keep that bond together, because the stronger your bond is with someone, the quicker you can pick up on their sort of body language. You know what it's like. You know straight away at home when your sibling is in a bad mood, whereas if a stranger came into your home, they could quite easily fool them and not know that there was anything wrong. So the more connected you are, the better you are at picking up subtle signs. Oh, it just ran to the right, a little bit further to the right. Oh no, other right.
I know, but they're not gonna reach it anymore.
Oh, the wind is definitely picking up now, and it's icy today. It's not a pleasant wind at all. And you can see it's definitely making the mongoose slightly nervous now too. Nikki, you're wondering if the mongoose leave a babysitter behind when the adults go out and forage. Well, after a couple of weeks, the little ones will actually spend quite a bit of time outside the den as well. They don't necessarily just stay inside, sort of like you say we see with wild dogs, where they leave a babysitter. I think they're the best when it comes to leaving someone behind to look after the youngsters. Normally it's an injured one. Maybe not necessarily, but I've actually never noticed that before, because remember, we can't really see what's down and inside the mound. Everyone's now left that mound that they were on. They've all gone about their day now. That one's still just deciding where it's going to go. So Nikki, I'm not actually sure. What I would love to do, the most amazing thing, and hopefully we get a chance to do it one day, personally, I would like to put, of course, a camera inside an active mongoose den, because they become sort of habituated quite easily, of course, to cameras and things like that. I mean, you've seen it, we sit on the ground, it only takes them a few minutes and then they don't care, and they happily poke their heads up the mound, and if you sit there for long enough they'll get used to it, and they'll feed around you. So imagine putting a GoPro or something inside an active burrow and then actually watching the social dynamics. I'd love to know, how do they sleep? Do they all huddle up together to keep warm, or do they have their own separate sleeping compartments? How does this all work? But we can't really see below the ground. We can only observe what happens. So there's so much that we don't actually know about these mongoose and about many of the different animals out here. We just sort of speculate from experiences and what we see. But no, why are you flying away, white crown shrike? I was just about to say I was going to watch this white crown shrike. Right, let me see if I can find some more birds. We're going to have to move. Well, we'll keep going and see if we can find something else. I'm going to send you in the meantime across to Tristan, and hopefully he's on his way to the hyena den.
I am indeed, Taylor. I'm slowly but surely making my way there, but I've spotted something else in the distance which I want to show all of you. But now I'm a bit worried because of signal where they are. They're right down in the dip here, but I'm going to try and see if we can't see them from here. I've just seen the flash of their wings from this distance. Now, Craig, you see that big tall tree straight across from us? Now, down below that, there should be some of our most prehistoric looking birds. Maybe a little to the left, Craig? That big dead tree there. That one, yeah. Yep. Now they were there. They are. You see them in the background? So they're just walking through that burnt section. Just behind that big tall dead tree, there are some ground hornbills. There you can see them slowly but surely coming out into the open. There they come. And so what they're doing, and this is pretty typical of a ground hornbill, is they spend time around these burnt sections. So they go to areas where it is burnt, because there's often lots of injured small animals. There's also slightly burnt mammals that you find, and they can then mop up basically and get all of those insects and things that have been disturbed and find food there. So you'll find the ground hornbills often walking around in those sections. Now I'm going to try and get closer. I just wanted to make sure where exactly they are. So I think let's try and see if we can't just quickly get through this dip, and hopefully the gremlins will leave us alone and we'll be able to kind of get through and see those hornbills in action and actually cleaning up and grabbing all of these little insects that might be around there. Because it's really cool to watch them. They go after all kinds of things, snakes and scorpions and insects and even mice, scrub hares. So all kinds of animals that may have been caught in this fire will be a potential meal for these guys. They also look for tortoises. So they are one of the tortoises' biggest threats, actually, funny enough. Them and the hyenas are the two. So both the animals that we're searching for. And move away, and we'll be able to watch them going about their business and hunting. Yes, here they all are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think I can see, or maybe even 7. There's a nice big grouping of them, and these are the ones that we do sometimes see all the way down on Philemon's cut line as well. So they move around quite a bit, and that's a younger bird. You can see its facial skin is a sort of red color, but there's a little bit of yellow in there. Now that is an indication of a younger bird, so a bird that's probably about 3 years old, whereas the one on the left hand side where it's walking towards, there is a bright red throat patch, and that indicates a adult, the one in the background there. But you see how they're just walking through and picking with these long beaks, looking for any signs of insects that are now completely exposed by the lack of vegetation in this area. It makes hunting for these guys so much easier when they have these burnt sections, and very common to see hornbills where it's burnt trying to find food. This is very cool. Also that they're so relaxed with us. So you find a situation where they spend a lot of time moving away from us, but I know Taylor's spent time with them, Ali's been spending time with them, and I've spent a bit of time, and it seems as though they're getting more and more used to the cars being around, and they're not just flying away when we come around, which is great because it's allowing us these beautiful views at one of the birds that looks probably the most prehistoric of our birds out here. The long big beak and those big long legs. They move around all the time, and they seem to always be busy with something. Now the interesting part is going to be to see whether or not we see any gifting from the male to the female, because sometimes what you'll find is the males will get into these sections and they'll pick up bits of food and insects and those kind of things, and then they'll go gift it to the female and to try and earn favor with the female. So it's a lot like some humans really, that try and kind of bribe the females with all kinds of shopping items, and so our hornbills are very similar. I want to just go up a little bit to these guys that are up ahead here. So Mary, you say these birds are cool. They are some of my favorite birds in terms of just watching their antics and watching what they get up to. In the Kruger Park, they're an interesting one because unfortunately people have fed them, and they actually become a bit of a pest in the Kruger, and they come right up to the cars and they almost peck at the cars begging for food, which is not good, but they are super interesting. I always like watching them, and like I say, the social dynamic of them, they're one of those birds that is quite a tight-knit social unit, and you'll find that they all look after each other, and the fact that they gift to the female as the male, it's just a very interesting way of going about things. I wonder if they're going to settle up there. I see that a lot of them have now flown off into a dead tree. Let's go back rather. Rochelle, you're asking how we tell if a bird is male or female. Now Rochelle, as soon as I get settled again, I'm going to show you quickly in my book, because basically there is a difference in the color of the skin on the throat. So you'll find that they have these red colors, and that is the male, and the purple, the female will get a little kind of purple bleeding into that red. So I'm going to show you now what I'm talking about. And while I try to find that, Craig's going to show you the actual birds themselves. So there's that little young one that we saw just now coming past us. Okay. Alright, so that one will eventually come of age and it will get what I'm talking about. So here we go. Here is our ground hornbills. There is the male over there. You see he's got very red throat skin, and then around the eye is all red, but no sign of any purple bleeding into that. Whereas if you look at the female, there you see that purple patch coming through the red, and you'll find it's very variable. Sometimes it will be a thin linear line like what you see there. Sometimes it almost looks like a delta from the air where it seeps into different parts and it's got these small sort of vascular structure around that red. So it just depends on the individual, but that's how you tell male and female apart within the ground hornbills. Very cool birds. And I can see they're slowly coming back down. There's some that are still hunting up at the top, and then there's this young one that's close to us, and then one or two that have gone up into trees and are just busy grooming themselves. So they spread out quite a bit, and it's very typical of them to spread out like this when they are hunting. You'll find a situation where they kind of get used to the fact that they're all over the place, and they'll each have their own quadrant where they can then afford to find food and they don't get on top of one another and steal from each other. What is quite funny is when you find an adult catching something, some of these juveniles will come running towards the adult and try and beg for it, even when they're a little bit older, and the adults eventually lose patience and will run off and just eat it, and soon the juvenile then learns that it needs to do its own thing and find its own food, which is what it's doing now. But what you will notice with these guys is they are pure sight hunters. They have a massive eye that they're able to see what's going on, and so you'll often see them cock their head slightly to the side as they look at things. So big beautiful eyes and long eyelashes to protect those eyes when they're walking through the grass, so that they don't get little bits of debris and grass seeds and varying other things inside the eyes themselves. So they'll use those eyes. Look, there we go, see, tilting the head slightly, and then they'll spear down with that massive beak. Anna Marie, you're asking what animals are most dangerous to ground hornbills. Well, big adults like this, I would imagine things like a leopard would be very dangerous to them. I know that there has been reports of martial eagles, so we saw a martial eagle last night. Martial eagles going after our ground hornbills. So those two would probably be the biggest threats as adults. But as chicks, which is where most of the mortality is within ground hornbills, you'll find that the chicks are hunted by various predators. So what happens with ground hornbills is often they make their nests in a poor area, so they'll choose a big tree with a big hole so that the adult can get in and out. But the problem with that is that so can a lot of other animals. So there's snakes that get to the chicks, there are genets, civets, leopard, even lions to a degree will be able to climb up and get into a nest and be able to grab those chicks. So that's their sort of biggest problem, is all of those predators that are able to get to the chicks. As adults, I would say probably the only thing would be a leopard or potentially a martial eagle. Other than that, I haven't heard of too many things that actually hunt adult ground hornbills. There's quite an interesting one. I know that I've once seen a cheetah chase a ground hornbill, but it was unsuccessful. The ground hornbill managed to fly before the cheetah got close. But otherwise, there's very few predators of the adult birds. I suppose if we had to think of adult birds, it would actually be us as humans that are probably the number one, and not because we hunt them, but because we destroy their habitat, and that's why unfortunately they don't survive. And outside of these bush areas, very few ground hornbills left. But they're just drifting now further southwards into the long grass, so I'm going to leave them there and let them carry on with their day. Not by these ground hornbills. I've had my car picked at by them in the Kruger Park area, and in terms of other hornbills, just trying to think. No, never personally attacked. I've seen kids being attacked by them in the Kruger Park. There's lots of picnic spots, and what happens is these kids go and they try and feed the hornbills, and then the hornbills come and peck at them to get food. So, and it's a big beak and it can do a lot of damage. I've seen a kid with that got picked on the hand and blood was coming out, so it is something that you've got to be a little bit careful about. Now, before I carry on, I just want to see, I see tracks here for a male and a female lion, but I'm just trying to work out how fresh they are. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me just try and find a nice place to, or a nice track that I can see for you. Craig, are these going to work? I think they'll work. So there we go. There is our tracks coming down the road, and you can see lots of different footprints as they go. So there is what looks like a male and female. I'm just trying to check nicely, but it does look like that. And I'm trying to work out when these tracks are from. I don't know. I'll have to maybe ask Taylor or the guides, because they don't look as though they're from last night, but maybe from yesterday sometime. And because there are tracks for a civet going over the top, but other than that, there's very few tracks that are going over, and the fact that they're on top of most of the vehicle tracks is pretty good news. This cut line that we're on, Buffelshoek cut line, is a very busy place, and lots of vehicles drive up and down here, and so it means that these guys could have walked over the top of some of those vehicles, but it's also a situation that they could have been here yesterday, and maybe the guys do know about these tracks already. I don't see anybody's though. Just rolling back because I want to see a little bit more detail as to whether these are very fresh or not. They seem as though they've been disturbed by the wind. I'm sure they're yesterday's tracks. I'll ask on the radio now when I'm off air, and if they're not, then we'll definitely come back and try and follow these and see where they go. Trying to see just how many there are here from where I'm looking. It's actually... just trying to see. Okay, so it is a male and a female, and I'll show you now the difference between the two. Alright, Craig, hold on, let me get my... I need to go and pick a piece of grass. Stay there, Wendy, so that I can show you the difference between these two tracks. No, that's going to work. That's a bit better. Alright, so we've got our male track over here in front. Now, Craig, tell me if you can't see me, but here is the male track over here. and that is his front foot. So I want to just quickly show you just how big his front foot is in comparison to the female's front foot, which is just next to it. So there we go, we'll go across like that. Okay, so that's for the male. Now the female, I don't know if I've got enough grass for this. Hopefully I will. So there we go. Come on. Oh, we've just picked the right length of grass. So there we go. Now, it's difficult to see on the actual road itself because the tracks are a little bit obscured. So I've picked the grass to be able to show you guys just the size difference between this male's track and the female's track. I've got to just straighten my grass because I kind of bent it a little bit. Now wind, you don't blow too hard because otherwise we're going to have a problem. Right, so there we go. Okay, it's also a little bit bent, so I'll just straighten that out a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So female track on the right hand side, you can see it's quite long in comparison to its base length. Alright, so much longer, it has a longer appearance, whereas the male you can see is almost rounded. It's as wide as it is long, and so that's how you can kind of tell the difference between the two of them. The male track is often a lot more rounded than what the female is, very similar to what you see in leopard, but you can also see the size difference. Oh no, the wind is causing havoc here. Unfortunately, no, we're not going to win with this wind, but at least we had it for 2 seconds, and that's the sort of difference between the male and the female track. So I'm sure these are those two that have been hanging around, this honeymoon couple that has been seen quite a bit on Biffel's Hook, and I think they were seen yesterday, so I'm sure these are yesterday's tracks that we are looking at. But still nice to see nonetheless. I wonder which female it is though. Otherwise it is. Now I believe Miss McCurdy is doing... No, she's not. She's back to Gremlinville, and she was fighting them off and doing a sterling effort, but unfortunately it's as though the gremlins have attacked her again. But I just want to radio the guys quickly and just find out about these tracks because they actually look quite good to me. Wait, hang on, now we've got civets. No, civets all over them and impalas, so these are yesterday's tracks. Never mind, those are not going to be worth following, I don't think. They are on top of all the tractor tires from when they did this burning here a few days ago, so they are tracks that are on top of that, which means they're probably from yesterday morning, I would say. Early yesterday morning, and then they probably crossed north, because I know they had them yesterday just north of the boundary here on the firebreak area. Right, well, we'll hopefully get to the Hyena Den at some point. It's taking a bit of time to get there, but we get sidetracked with all kinds of other things. These things happen, and it is the way things go. There's worse things to be distracted by than ground hornbills and lion tracks. Certainly quite happy to see both of those, actually. It would be nice if they were very fresh lion tracks coming south onto Djuma, though. That would be even better. Now, I feel sorry for Taylor this morning. She's had a bit of a technical nightmare, and she's done such a sterling effort of finding all kinds of interesting content on quarantine, so very nice to see that she's been helping us out, and we certainly are very appreciative, because otherwise you guys would have had to hear me droning on for 3 hours of your day, which maybe, depending on who you are, would have either enjoyed that or not enjoyed it. But it's so nice that at least that Taylor has helped out, and she's manfully tried her very best to fight gremlins and find lots of interesting things to talk about. And it sounds like she's had quite a lot, actually, from the dwarf mongoose to the birds, and it seems very, very interesting at the moment. And like I say, with quarantine, there's actually so much that happens on quarantine. We often kind of, because it's so close to camp, we just bypass it and we go on our drives and we move around, and we forget just how important an area it is. There's lots that goes on there, lots of zebras and wildebeest and impalas and the odd nyala that creeps around. Did I just see elephant tracks? That would be a nice thing to see. Hold on. No, alas, those are not for elephants, they are for something else that we should not be talking about too much. What we do have is a southern white-crowned shrike, which is also taking advantage of these burnt sections. And it's actually, in terms of birding, these burnt areas are some of the best places to bird, because now don't fly away, of course you would fly away, silly bird, but they will be all congregating around here because there's nowhere for insects to hide in this burnt section, and they can actually find a lot of what they're looking for fairly easily, and you'll find lots of them sort of sitting along in this area. So Cern, who's a new viewer, hello Cern, and welcome to Safari Live. Fern, sorry, not Cern, Fern. Welcome to Safari Live, Fern, and well, I hope you will be with us for many years to come and that you're enjoying this little bit of Africa coming to your home. You were asking whether this was a controlled burn or was it a natural fire. So Fern, it was a controlled burn, and it basically, what is happening here is that we're on a divide section between two different areas that are two different owners of private land. So on the northern side is Buffelshoek, Hook, on the southern side is Djuma, and there is a section that runs between these properties, and it's pretty common throughout this area is that you'll have a small piece of bush between two roads, and they call it a fire break. Now a fire break is an area that is generally either cut or is burnt like this in a controlled fashion, so that if a natural fire breaks out, it means that huge tracts of land don't get burnt, because if the fire is burning this side, it's not going to be able to jump this fire break onto the Djuma side, and vice versa. So it's just a good way of controlling how fire works if it does start naturally, and stopping huge tracts of land being burnt within the section. Because remember, when it gets burnt, as soon as you have an area that's burnt like this, and it becomes devoid of life fairly quickly until such time as the rains come. Once the rains come, it's a great place to be, because you'll find luscious grass that grows with full of nutrients from the burn that's happened, and it will be really a good place. But prior to that, it becomes very difficult, and so you don't want this whole area to be burnt, because otherwise, well, then there's going to be no animals here, and it's going to be very difficult for a lot of these commercial operations to run their lodges. And so they put in these fire breaks in these controlled sections just to stop big runaway bushfires in case they do come. So this is all just prep, because this year we do have a very high risk of fire, being that it's dry, as well as the fact that we have a little bit of sort of rain, and that means that we've got a lot of bush that could burn as well as it being dry. Now William, age 8 from Oregon, you asking if the burn smell does go away. It will eventually go away, William. It's just that it takes a bit of time, and normally it's only when the rains arrive that we'll start to sort of smell that smell going away. Now I was going to show you a bird, but it flew away, unfortunately. It was a Senegal lapwing, but our Senegal lapwing has gone. So the smell will get less and less all over time, but it only really goes away properly when you get a bit of rain and that green growth starts to come through. What will be quite interesting, and I've seen it happen before with dew on the ground and in the winter months, is that there sometimes is enough dew, and particularly if we get misty mornings in the winter, that will actually cause a bit of green grass to grow on fire breaks, and fire breaks can then become some of the best areas to look for animals, because what happens is the slight green growth grows even in this dry winter months when no rain is falling, just from the moisture of the mist and of the dew that forms, and you get a little thin carpet of green, and that thin carpet of green, in comparison to this brown dead stuff that we're seeing, causes the animals to rush there, and then you get a lot of animals feeding off these fire breaks, as well as then predators following after that. So they can actually be quite a good place to look for animals. Now still no sign of any leopard tracks anywhere around here, or elephant tracks. So hopefully when we get to the Hyena Den, that will be active, because that's one track that we've seen a lot of this morning. There's been hyena tracks absolutely everywhere. So hopefully the den will be active. So Julie, you're asking if we have trees here that need fire to germinate. For the most part, no. Because this area is not an area that would burn every year. It's not as reliant on fire as something like fynbos. So fynbos is a very specific type of vegetation or ecosystem that we get down in the Cape, and it is pretty much indigenous to the southwestern side of South Africa, and that fynbos is highly reliant on fire. It needs fire to help seeds germinate regularly. Here in this area, not so much. Like I say, fire is not all the time here. It's not like we have a fire every year, and that would mean then we'd have a lot of sort of degradation of the environment due to the fact that we have big large herbivores like elephants, and if the seed couldn't germinate other than with fire, you would find that that species of plant would probably disappear quite quickly. So it's not very fire dependent, a lot of these trees, but in the southwestern part of South Africa, down in the Cape, they are very dependent. Without fire, a lot of those plants will disappear. So it is a very interesting ecosystem down there, and unfortunately large tracts of fynbos have been lost because, well, as people have come in, they stop fires. So we have this tendency to try and put fires out all the time, and we have to because we have homes and things like that that do burn, and well, the life of a person is often far outweighs the germination process of a plant. But it means that areas like that are very specialized are decreasing, and so in Cape Town they need the fires to keep that fynbos system alive, and unfortunately as we grow and expand, those tracts of land are getting less and less because we keep putting the fires out. So hopefully we'll find some areas where we can just protect and leave them as natural and allow for the fires to take place and for the fynbos to regenerate and to keep going and to allow certain species that live there, because there's a lot of species that are very dependent on the plant life in a fynbos system. Right, well, we're on Hyena Den Road now. We just need to get to the actual little 2-track that goes into the den itself and see if they are at home. Hopefully little Ntima will be out and about and playing around, and Ribbon and January, and I think it was Hearts was there, or Soul, I can't remember now exactly which one it was that was there last time, but one of them. And I know that June was seen recently down on Chitwa as well, so hopefully some of them will be around in this area. At least we'll get our spot fix for the day. So it wasn't a leopard spot, but spots are spots, and I suppose we had our giraffe spot fixed this morning, and that was a great way to start the day. It was one of those beautiful, like I say, iconic African moments of a silhouetted giraffe walking behind a sunset or a sunrise is what people often think of as a picture of Africa. If you ask them what is one picture of Africa, it's often a silhouette of a giraffe. So that was a really nice way to start, and given that we haven't seen too many giraffe recently, a really good sort of way to get things going and to actually spend some time with them. So we I suppose had a little bit of spots, but those aren't really proper spots. They're spotty, but not the spots we're looking for. I suppose you would call them more patchy. I think patchy is a better word for a giraffe than what spotty is. I think spotty is better for cats and for the hyenas, but patchy is what we should call our giraffe. Now I already see one hyena sitting here, which is good news. Now who are you? Is that you, Ribbon? Looks like it could be Ribbon just lying down, and Ntima nursing. There we go. So Ribbon and Ntima are here. As far as I can see, no sign of anybody else at this stage, but at least the two of them are here, and it looks like Ntima's having breakfast. It seems to be a good time of day to come to the den. It seems as though Ntima often is suckling. In the last 3 times I've been at this time of the day, she's been suckling with Ribbon, and look at Ribbon's very, very sleepy. What amazes me is if you have a look at Ribbon's stomach, it's actually not very swollen. It's not very big. It's not as though looks as though she's eaten too much. But yesterday morning, Ribbon had a belly of note. She was involved with the wild dog hyena clash at Chitwa Dam, and she was seen feeding on that carcass with a nice big full tummy. And so it's amazing how quickly they digest and how quickly they go back to normal. Now I believe Taylor's found signal and a feathered friend, so let's quickly go across to her because our hyenas are not going anywhere.
Tristan, I just hope that you can catch your breath. Luckily, you and I don't mind talking lots, and we're quite talented at it, so that saves us sometimes. We've got our wrong radio, Chantal, wrong radio. Sorry about that, I lost my train of thought there. But luckily, our trusty old faithful friend, the lilac-breasted roller, saves the day once again. Maybe we get another intimate courtship sort of display that we got to see the other day. Wouldn't that be quite nice? We started off with one roller and then we got a second one. But it's just resting. Obviously, it's been flying about quite a bit, looking for things to eat. And I suppose the perch that it's got at the moment, we can't really see its beautiful colors because it's sitting in the shade. And I suppose it is very important for these birds to try and keep their temperatures down, because if they continue flying about all the time and get too hot, then again, just as us, if you go running, you start to burn those valuable fat resources that you have. And I suppose at this time of the year, we keep talking about it, they can't risk it at all, because there aren't an abundance of insects out and about. In summer, it's completely different. There's grasshopper after grasshopper, termites, butterflies, you name it. There's so many different things and different insects, of course, for these birds to catch. But now, times are scarce. They obviously would have taken benefits of the controlled burns that have been going about. And I know Tristan has been talking about it as well. And I believe they're going to be doing some more burns today. So hopefully this afternoon we can try and find some of those areas that they are burning and see if we can find the birds doing their thing. They've burnt the fire breaks, so the blocks that they'll be taking on now will be much larger, and we could potentially see some big flames, and that's exactly what the insects don't want. They don't want to get caught in those big flames, so they head to the sky. So I think the drongos and the rollers and anything else that fancies eating the odd insect will be quite happy to take on that, and that could be quite nice. It may test, of course, Sebastian and Craig's camera work. Can you imagine trying to capture the acrobatics of these birds in the sky? They're not the slowest flyers either. They are very quick, and they turn within a split second and change direction and dive down and chase off their prey. But it is just resting. But they do hunt. They have different types of hunting techniques, of course, for various birds, and a common tactic and the fork-tailed drongos use too, as well as the lilac-breasted roller, is actually just to sit and wait and to try and spot some prey, whether it flies from one tree to another, or perhaps it's just a butterfly fluttering about looking for something to eat as well. And unfortunately, though, they often fall victim to these lilac-breasted rollers. And I look forward to seeing the breeding displays where the rollers get their names from, of course. It is so amazing, and the sounds that you hear, normally you hear them first and then you know. And that will pinpoint you in the direction that you need to look, to watch them as they come tumbling back down towards the ground, turning just at the last second. It's quite an amazing one. Very difficult to get on camera. I once had a guest who, they'd been to South Africa many, many times, so they'd seen the leopards, they'd seen the lions and the elephants and you name it, and they really got into birding. And they did the same thing. They arrived in South Africa and said, we don't want to stop for any birds. And then after their fourth or fifth time, they realized how incredible the bird life is out here in South Africa, and her dream and her goal was to try and get a picture of the mating display of the lilac-breasted rollers. We tried every single time. Luckily they had a private vehicle too, so we could just focus an entire afternoon on trying to find rollers, and that's what we did. We'd drive and we'd stop and we'd listen, and we'd hear that quack, 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 quack noise that the roller makes, and then we'd quickly drive as fast as we could, as if we were chasing after wild dogs, stop, look in the sky, get as close as we could, and then you'd hear the camera going trying to get those shots. But it's not an easy one. I don't think there are many photos out there of the lilac-breasted rollers doing their displays. It would be quite tricky. But everything's looking a bit bare and grim out here at the moment. You can see most of the trees have actually lost all their leaves now. It's just a couple of the bush willows. What else we've got? A few round leaf teaks that have still got their leaves, but they're all starting to change that yellow color. They've become extremely unpalatable. They're dry. They'll crunch if you pick one and crunch it in your hand. Most of the marulas have also completely lost their leaves now. But now we just need to wait for the return of the elephants, and then we'll start seeing amazing sightings. And then lilac-breasted roller, you'd have to be careful sitting in a tree like this, because an elephant could easily come along and break some of those branches, or actually just push the entire tree down. And it's actually quite late. I can't believe we haven't started seeing the elephants feeding on the roots and the bark of the trees. I think it's just because of those late rains. I suppose, I mean, the late rains were great because it's just provided a whole lot of grass that wouldn't necessarily be here. But I do enjoy watching the elephants demonstrate how strong they actually are. No one else living in there? What I would like to find now though, and I think that's what we're going to do, we might have to head back towards quarantine, we're not too far away, is look for a group of buffalo weavers and see if we can't find them. Should we see if we can try our luck? Because there's absolutely nothing else here, unfortunately, other than the dry grass and the dying leaves. But we'll quickly go towards quarantine and we'll see if we can find some buffalo weavers to have a chat about. In the meantime, Tristan, of course, is at the Hyena Den, and I'm sure you're dying to head over that way to see what's happening.
Well, we are, and it's all pretty sedate this morning. Everyone's taking it very easy. And Tima's feeding. Ribbon is fairly sleepy. You can see she's looking around every now and then. Absolutely no sign of that little cub anywhere. I don't know if maybe it's inside the hole, but no sign of it. And I was talking to Taylor because, as we know, I was away for a day, and she said she came and checked, and it's looking more and more likely that that little cub is the cub from Scarback, and that Scarback has not come back to this den for quite some time, and that little cub may indeed, unfortunately, pass away. So it's a bit of a bad day all around in terms of Atumi and the little cub here. And you'll find that Ribbon won't allow feed it and won't give any nutrients to that cub itself. But this is how nature works, unfortunately. It's, like I say, brutal at times, as much as it's amazing, and we get to see little intimate moments like this of a little hyena cub suckling from its mom. It also has the other effects on us, which is the brutal side of it, and it can be very hard to watch these things, but unfortunately that is how it works out here. And it's, like I say, it's what makes nature so compelling and so amazing, is that this ability and this drive to survive and to try and keep things alive really is far outweighs all of the sort of negative sides of what we see. And the ability of these animals to actually live day to day and to make sure that they get the species going and keep the species alive is astounding. It's something that always amazes me in the way that they do things. And you can see in Tima, well, she's, on a more positive note, is probably one of the happiest little cubs that it could be. It's lying on her side in a bit of shade, and she'll be getting very nutrient rich milk from mom, because I was saying earlier that mom fed off that impala that the wild dogs killed at Chitwa Dam yesterday morning, and that nutrients that Ribbon has taken will be transferred into her milk, and so that little Intima is getting really nutrient rich, high energy milk at the moment, and so will be a happy little one as it sucks away at the teats. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I'm sure Ribbon's milk is going to be starting to become less and less and less, and so maybe that's why we're finding Intima feeding for such long periods of time. Not only is she bigger and has a bigger stomach, which means there's more to fill, but on top of that is that you'll find that she's probably not getting the same flow of milk that she was getting when she was a little bit younger, and so now she's got to spend more time feeding to get the same amount of nutrients that she was getting as a young individual. And Ribbon, where's all the rest of you? Maybe the others are here. There's lots of places that are shady that the rest of the clan can be lying in, although we've not seen any of the matriarch or high-ranking females around this den yet, as far as I know. I'm not sure if maybe Taylor or Ali has, but I certainly haven't seen Madam or Pretty coming around this area and checking what's going on. So we've seen some of the younger ones in this area and lying in the shade, but I haven't seen any sign of the matriarchs. And maybe they are around, maybe they do spend time here. I was actually saying to, I think it was to Sebastian yesterday, that I'm sure that Madam and Pretty have a den somewhere on Hoffman's and Little Gowrie, because every day that we drive that boundary, there's tracks on either Weaver's Nest or Shabamu for big adult female hyenas going north and south. So it seems like they come over in the night, and then in the day they go back, in the mornings they go back south, because the tracks from going south are generally on top of the ones coming north. So I'm sure there is a den. Also, I have followed multiple hyenas, particularly those two, to that southern boundary, and we've seen them going from Treehouse Dam drinking and then going straight south on Shabamu and into Hoffman's Little Gowrie area. So I think they might be that side, and then the lower ranking females this side. Of course, that is a big sort of, well, what would you call it? I suppose it's a big theory, and it's not one that is proven in any way, but it just seems that the tracks and the evidence of what we're seeing is that these guys are moving a lot more in the southern parts, and then we've got these hyenas up here. And the track size of the one track that we're seeing, particularly around Shabamu, Treehouse, Weaver's Nest, is massive. The other day I thought there was a big male leopard track, and it turned out to be this female hyena. So she's got a really big paw print, which I imagine would be for pretty, or for Madam or Pretty or one of those. Sorry, there is a spider web on the lens, so I'm going to get rid of that. But other than that, it's all very peaceful here. The hyena dens are often like this at this time of the day, particularly when the little ones are feeding. They're generally very active when there is a bit of commotion going around, and when Ribbon maybe arrives, then you'll find Tima will walk around. But now that she's feeding, she's going to be super relaxed. She's not going to move too much. And you can see Ribbon is sleeping. She's obviously had a long night of roaming around and moving and seeing what's out there. And so I think it's all just now about taking it very easy and taking the time to enjoy a bit of sunshine, much like what we're doing. It's actually very pleasant sitting here at the den. There's a bit of a breeze blowing, but there's a bit of sunshine. And I suppose if you're a furry hyena, that is the best possible way to spend your day. But you can see little Intima's legs, she's starting to lose the black color. There's a few spots developing on the feet now, or around the feet area. Andy, you're asking how old hyena cubs are when they get weaned off their mother. Well, Andy, anywhere between 6 and 8 months, so somewhere around there is when they'll start to be weaned. So Intima's got she's about 6 months now, so she's on that process of being weaned off. Normally it's around 8 months, though, from what I've seen. I've even seen hyenas of closer to 12 months trying to suckle. They generally don't get very much out of their mothers, and their mothers generally snap at them and chase them away, but they do try. So, but generally 8 months is a good figure to work on. But you can see the little feet that Craig was showing you just now, and the tail at the back there, they're all starting to lose that black coloration and getting bits of white and spots on them. And it's even the fluff is starting to get less and less. You know, when they're first out and they first get this spotty coat, they're very fluffy, and but slowly but surely. What was that? Now it sounds like something is crashing through the bushes close to us. You can see Intima lifted her head, and I can't hear exactly what it is, but there was a squeaking sound and then a crashing of bushes. I wonder if there isn't something here close by. You can see, look, Intima's busy looking over her shoulder. It is somewhere on our left hand side. Now there was tracks for varying other animals around here. I didn't see any signs of elephant tracks, so maybe it's those big animals we don't talk about. I wonder if it's not them crashing around. It could be, because I can hear oxpeckers as well, which is generally a good indication that there is a large animal somewhere close by. Of course, the hyenas are not perturbed in the slightest by all of this. They've just gone back to sleep and taken it very easy. What is amazing is that even though there was a crashing in the bush, Intima she looked and she was quite concerned as to what was going on for a few seconds, but Ribbon, not at all interested at what was going on. She knows that that sound is a natural sound and not one that she has to worry about. If she had heard maybe a different sound of some other sort of predator, you might have found her reacting a lot quicker. Right, it sounds like Taylor has a feathered friend again, so before it flies away, let's quickly go across to her.
The birds seem to be my only friend today. It's not the buffalo weaver that I was hoping to find, but it is a crested barbet, a very busy crested barbet, feeding on jackalberry fruit. Look at that, there's a jackalberry tree on quarantine. I'm going to come and scavenge here later and see if there's anything that I can find beneath the base of the tree, but I won't go running over there right now because I don't want to disturb that bird. But I'm sure that that barbet is super happy. And I don't know if you saw, but those fruits, they're not quite ripe just yet. They've still got a bit of ripening to do. Where'd you fly now? You pesky bird, sit still. There it is, straight in the middle. You can just see it's dangling upside down, trying to find all the fruits. I'm surprised there actually aren't any more birds in this tree other than just this crested barbet. I thought we'd maybe get the go-away birds. I thought maybe even some black-collared barbets, because there don't seem to be too many jackalberries out here that have got lots and lots of fruit on them. But crested barbets, most of their diet consists of fruit, but they will take other things. They will take insects. They will take all sorts of other delicious things too when they're about. But now I suppose this time of the year the main thing is finding the jackalberries, and then once the guaris also develop their fruits, they'll start going for them. I'm trying to see. Normally there's a food party around here all the time. We normally have quite a few birds. There's a couple of birds just over there. There's a Birchall starling and a hornbill hopping around in the grass. This is where I was hoping we were going to find an entire flock of buffalo weavers. There's the starling is just there, looking for things, and I wonder what insects they're getting. I mean, it's very difficult to see. It could be little beetles moving around, ants, I suppose they'd be eating too, but they always spend so much time pecking away and sort of, I suppose, scratching around in the grass as chickens would. But you never see them picking up anything and eating. We do, but I suppose they're just like us. I mean, they're not just like us, but just like the lions. They attempt to go after an insect, but they don't necessarily get one. And of course, that analogy is with lions catching other antelope species. But it's looking beautiful in the sun, though. This bird shining away. The wind is howling now. I hope it dies down for this afternoon safari, especially if they're going to be doing some burns today. They might actually put those burns on hold if this wind continues. It won't be very safe to burn on conditions like this. Wind is always good, but not too much, not when it gusts. Otherwise you'll see one flame jumping from a tree, especially with all the dried leaves on at the moment. There's lots of fuel. See, there must be quite a big group of insects around here, otherwise we wouldn't see the hornbill now joining, as well as the Birchall starling. What are you eating? Show us. Catch something and then hold it in the beak, or bring it over here and drop it on my dashboard. That would be even better. But very busy. Not staying in the same place either. Phew, it looks like they're competing for food now. That hornbill used its size to chase away the Birchall starling. We always talk about how it does matter to be large out in the bush. I suppose it's one of the few places where size does matter. The Game Drive radio. Just turn that down now. I just wanted to let you know that it's not just us that are having a quiet morning. There's been no cats found whatsoever in Buffels Hook, even on Torchwood. They've been tracking lions all morning. It's like they've been just tracking ghosts. But I reckon these lions would have gone, nah, not having any of this wind, and just ducked into a drainage line or a thick area, even in some long grass. They won't be bothered to come out on a day like today. Even though it's cool, the sun is still shining. I think that they're also just enjoying the rest. Now, James, you're wondering if there's any difference between this winter and the winter before? Yes, of course. Of course, we had the massive drought for the last few years. We don't have the drought anymore, though. So I suppose at this time of the year last year, the ground was completely barren. There was no grass at all. It was just sand. And I think it was a lot more stressful for the animals. So like I said earlier, I think that everyone's really appreciative of the late rains that we got. You know, for us as humans wanting the best game viewing, I suppose you could say we could be picky and say it's sort of put that process on hold slightly for us. Because normally you'd be seeing lots and lots of cats, lots of buffalo coming to these areas that they obviously draw the lions here. So we have to wait. But I think this year, this winter is a whole lot easier than what it was 2016, 2015. It wasn't great for the animals. It was really quite sad and terrible. I remember this time last year, driving around, seeing dead buffalo and dead hippos around every corner, lots of vultures. The smell of decay filled the air. It really wasn't pleasant at all. I don't wish to have something like that again. Watching hippos in dams, basically also starving to death, You know it's bad when you can see the hippo's hips and ribs, and we actually sadly got a couple of shots like that, and we spent some time with them, you know, watching hippos almost getting stuck in the mud because they're just trying to keep themselves cool on the warm days. And I suppose that was also quite hard for them, is that it wasn't necessarily a very cold winter either. We didn't have the lower temperatures, it was very hot. Sure. I don't think they're going to be able to burn today. I really think I'm going to be surprised if they do. Okay, let's see what else we can find other than those birds now disappearing. It's gone very quiet here. Just checking up in that jackalberry again to see if I can see any more birds hopping away. But unfortunately, there isn't anything. We'll see if we can find those buffalo weavers. Perhaps we'll have to head down towards Vuyatela Dam again. Tristan is still sitting at the Hyena Den. I wonder if they're enjoying the morning sun just as much as I am.
I feel like they are, Taylor. I feel like it's one of those moments where you kind of zen moments where you sit with your sort of head raised slightly to the sun, and it always reminds me of meerkats when they kind of sit in the sun and they lift their heads and their eyes closed and you just enjoy the warmth of the sunshine. And it seems a little bit like what these hyenas are doing. And Tima's perked her head up every now and then and kind of looked around, but Ribbon, well, as you can see, is not really that interested in what's going on. I don't think she's moved her head. She opens her eyes from time to time, but otherwise is not really too concerned with what's going on at this stage of the game. A pretty happy, content hyena. But you can see no red or blood around the muzzle like what we saw the other day, so she, I don't think, fed this morning. Elizabeth, you were wondering how often hyenas have cubs. Now, this is quite cool because hyenas, out of all the predators, or the big predators, if we think of lion and leopard and cheetah and those animals, hyenas actually have a very regular cub intervals. They pretty much breed once a year, so they will have their young ones, very short gestation period of just over 2.5 months, and then they have their young ones, should I say, and then from there they'll raise them, and once 8 months they start weaning, and by a year old they are pretty much running around and they can then start breeding. So the interval is about a year and a half between cubs, which if you think of lions generally are between 2.5 and 3 years between cubbing intervals if they raise them successfully, and leopards very similar as well. So it's quite interesting that theirs is much shorter, and that's why hyena clan numbers can grow very quickly in areas where there's not any other predators or any other threats to their cubs. They generally find that their numbers expand very, very fast. And last year during the drought, I know Taylor was talking about the drought, and last year during the drought it was prime conditions for hyenas, and we saw a big growth in the hyena population within the Sabi Sands and even the Kruger Park system. And the reason why is because with the drought there were so many animals dying that the hyenas were finding so much food, their nutrient-rich milk was getting to their young ones, and so the success rate and the survival rate of the young was that much more. Also, there's a theory that sometimes with a oversupply of food that you'll actually get 2 mating seasons within the same year. So even if the little ones are around 8 months and they're weaning, they'll actually have a next set already because they're able to find enough food and to produce more milk and to be able to keep those ones alive. So the hyena numbers did increase drastically through that drought. You found a lot more hyenas surviving, and they were able to provide so much more food to their little ones. Now I think Ribbon's starting to stretch a little bit. I wonder if she's not going to get up and move. Maybe the sun is just hitting her back feet and getting a little hot. And you'll sometimes find that is what happens, and she might move around to the back of the other side of the den like what we saw the other day. She got up and she got to the other side and lay down there in this nice shade, and then little Tima came following and bounding behind her. Now, I must be honest, this little cub has grown on me, and Tima's becoming such a inquisitive little animal. It kind of comes up to the vehicle at times and checks what's going on and sees what's happening, and is always having a look at what is going on around its little home. So very cute hyena, and seems to have a nice nature to it. So I'm enjoying spending time with these two, that's for sure. And the fact that this den has been so active for us, it's been fantastic. So Pancake, ooh, that's a nice Twitter handle, particularly at this time of the day for us, because, well, it's morning and the thought of pancakes is always a happy thought. And Pancake, you want to know about Oh, look at Ribbon yawning. See the dental structure there? She's got big teeth. You want to know if the female hyenas are larger than the males? Well, yes, they are. So the females are larger, and that's because it's a matriarchal society, and so the females pretty much dictate what goes on. Good morning, Intima. Are you having a little stretch? You can see she's at that lanky phase now where the legs are quite long, the body is starting to get a little bit more slender. When they're still tiny, they tend to be quite big and fluffy. So she's getting a little bit on the lanky side, and it eventually will even out. But there we go. This has now found a place to suckle. It'll kick to mom's belly just to make sure the milk is coming out. And there we go. That is one content hyena cub. So back to the females being larger, because the matriarchs of the clan and they look after what's going on, they generally get much bigger than what the males are. Not generally, they do get much bigger than the males. And that is a position of complete relaxation. Not very ladylike, but, well, looks comfortable nonetheless. Little Ribbon. It's interesting, her ears are actually quite clean, considering her sort of rank in the clan. And here comes little Intima to investigate the car. I was saying that she does like to investigate, so here we go. And there she just disappears. Now, Intima, do not eat my tires, otherwise we're going to have a problem. So it seems like she's going to eat the tires, which means that we might have a problem. And they sometimes chew on the valves, and I've actually had a blowout at a hyena den where the hyenas chewed through the valve and the whole tires went poof. Hyenas all scattered into the mound, and then we had to change the tire there. But hopefully that won't happen. So I'm going to try and just see if I can't encourage Intima not to bite my tires. And while we do that, let's go across to Taylor McCurdy and see what she's up to.
I promised you buffalo weavers, however I can't see any buffalo weavers, but we've managed to find their nests. Thank goodness their nests can't fly away. Now, Tristan and Sebastian were up on a tower trying to take down aerials the other morning, and unfortunately they had to go through some buffalo weaver nests, but it turned out to be quite an interesting experience. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever seen inside a buffalo weaver nest, because it's very difficult to, as you can see, covered with sticks, and they normally use sticks with lots of thorns on them as protection from snakes and raptors and anything else that might want to try and get inside there. But I tell you right now, their nest, the actual nest, is very cozy. It's sort of like a cup nest, but a very loose, untidy one, and a little bit bigger than that you see of a robin or a flycatcher. And that's made of nice grass, so the nest inside is actually really soft. Now, this isn't the biggest buffalo weaver nest I've seen. It's actually quite small, but you'll find quite a few different buffalo weavers or individuals in there. Now, one of this size, and I'm just trying to think in relation to how big the actual nest is, the grassy nest that they use, which is where they'll lay their eggs in. I can't imagine there'd be very many in there, because the males are polygamous, so they have many female mates and they'll all nest together. Sometimes they're cooperative, otherwise they just look after their own. And I don't think there'll be another male in there. I reckon it would just be one male with maybe 3 or 4 females. It's actually quite small, but they'll keep building. They don't ever stop. They're very hard-working birds. They continuously keep adding, re-strengthening, and they'll try and use the same nest every single year. Because even when they're not nesting, they still go inside it, and that's where they'll sleep, basically. So it's quite nice. So they've got a little home that they're protected in for most of the year, unless something comes through and completely destroys it. And they've also got quite a bit of food. It's a good area to live. You can see this tree's got nice pods, and the diet of the buffalo weavers is quite varied. They'll pick up things from fruit to seeds to insects. I suppose it just depends on the area and what's around. Again, just like the hornbills and the starlings, they can actually become quite used to humans, and you'll often see them hanging around sort of the rest cap. So I suppose they take in all sorts of things that they probably shouldn't eat, but they'll do that too. So there's actually quite a bit of food around at the moment. We've seen the knobthorns, the blackthorns dropping their seed pods. The jackalberries are starting to get fruit, which is quite nice. But hopefully hopefully some of those buffalo weavers will come back so we can have a look at them too. But without further ado, let's go back across to Tristan and that very sweet hyena cub in Djuma.
Indeed, and look at it, it's just sitting watching and wondering what's gone on. It was trying to suckle and Mom got up and just walked off, and now been left all by yourself to wonder about what you've done. I think Mom had enough of you, little one, and decided you'd fed enough and you've been put on rations, so you're now having to spend your time by yourself. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be the end of it. I'm sure Intima is going to go and have a nap now. She's got a full belly, and so she's going to go and take it easy up in the hole. There we go. Adele and Natalie, you're asking if hyena cubs are born with teeth. And I'm not actually 100% sure. I'm sure they do have milk teeth that they have, and that will eventually then grow out and they'll get their adult teeth. But I think they are born with very, very small teeth to start with. They're not very big, but they do go through a teething process. So the teeth, I think, just protrude and then slowly start coming through. When they're tiny, you often find them biting everything. So they'll bite trees and branches. And so very similar to most animals is that the teeth come out after they're born. So no, they probably don't have teeth when they're born. I'm not actually 100% sure, but I would imagine that they go through a teething process because you can see it happening quite often. Now I'm just going to reposition so we can see little Intima. Interestingly enough, when Ribbon walked off, she does have a little limp at the moment. She's got a limp on her left leg, and I saw there was an old wound there where she's been bitten on her left back area. Is definitely healing up nicely, and she's not too bad. After she had taken a few steps, you could see it started to get loosened up a little bit from lying for a long period of time. I think that's why she was having a bit of a limp. So if we see hyenas limping along, we might know exactly who it is from now. Craig said he saw a hyena limping across quarantine yesterday. It was yesterday or the day before, and so it must have been Ribbon that was doing that. But she's not. It's not a terrible limp, and it certainly won't stop her from moving around or in any way impede her activity and her ability to find food over the next few days or weeks until that is healed properly. But there is definitely a little bite mark there, so I wonder if she either didn't get dominated by the rest of the clan at a carcass, or if she had a little run-in with something else. And maybe that's the answer to what happened with this hyena that died in Buffelshoek. Maybe they competed with some lions or something like that, and that's what happened, although nobody really is sure how that hyena at Buffelshoek died. Little Intima, what are you doing? So you're just looking around. I suppose when you're a little bit bored at home, it's one of those situations, looking for something to be able to kind of play with and go after. Mananda, you're asking if hyenas are related to wild dogs. No, they're not. Hyenas are in their own family altogether, so they are in Hyena Den, whereas the wild dogs are in the canine family, so a little bit different in terms of their structures. They have different feet, different everything. In fact, wild dogs have a fused middle toe, and that's what separates them from everybody else, which the hyenas don't have. So a little bit different to each other, and that's why we refer to the young of hyenas as cubs as opposed to puppies like we do with the wild dogs. Now unfortunately it is that time of the day where it's starting to get to time for us to go for breakfast and for the show to finish and the drive to wrap up. We will be, of course, out this afternoon. It will be, I'm not actually sure who's going to be out. We have to flick a coin and see if it's maybe going to be team boys or team girls. So that's going to be what's going to go on, because Byron is back, Ali is back, and Taylor and I will still be here. We're definitely going to try and see if we can't fix Rusty today as well, and see if we can't get that all sorted out. So it promises to be at least a good day, and we certainly will have some vibrance back in the camp with Ali and Byron arriving, and I'm sure lots of fun will be had by all. It's always good when the two of them are back, and it's nice that Taylor and myself are here too, because I think we're going to have lots of fun. And like I say, we've already decided it'll be team boys versus team girls. So from myself, Taylor, Craig and Sebastian, thank you very much. We'll see you all on the Sunset Safari.